Welcome to the Wrestling Analyst podcast, Beyond the Bell, where the real story begins after the final bell. I'm your host, Night Stalker Luc Baudier, and together we'll break down the week's biggest moments, analyze storylines, and bring you opinions that hit harder than the steel chair. We will also explore how I would be booking a storyline if I were head of creative. Because here, every match tells a story, and we're here to break it down. So hit subscribe, leave a like, and click that notification bell, and let's go beyond the bell. So the week in review. We'll start off with Raw. So Adam Pearce confirms the injury to Seth Rollins and strips him of the World Heavyweight Championship. And he sets up a battle royal to determine who's going to face CM Punk at Saturday night's main event, because he says we're going to have a champion on November 1st. Now, I have my doubts on that, but we'll see what happens on November 1st. We have new tag team champions. Finally, titles were defended because Judgment Day had something like 140 some days with the titles, with only one title defense. And Dragon Lee and AJ Styles have beaten the Judgment Day for the titles. Now, will that set up a Judgment Day breakup? Hopefully, yes. What I hope happens is that it will be the beginning of Finn Balor's babyface term. I did a video on that subject maybe 3 weeks or a month ago. Go check it out. It was a fantasy booking that I made. I might revisit it later on if the storyline starts like I hope it would. I also hope that the tag team division will have a bit more spotlight on it right now. Now, because that Judgment Day don't have it, and it's not lost in the Dominik Mysterio storyline. And I think that AJ and Dragon Lee are unfortunately transitional champions, and maybe will get beaten by Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and that would make the title shine a little bit more, but we'll see. Dominik retains the Intercontinental title against Rusev. More on the subject later, because my opinion segment will talk about Dominik Mysterio. So Becky Lynch retains the Intercontinental Championship. Now, Maxine Dupri's work at the Performance Center in Natalia's dungeon is really showing. This match is putting her on the map. Will Maxine win the IC title? I don't know. I don't think so. And Jessica Carr has been the referee in the last 3 of Becky Lynch's matches involving that storyline. Something is being developed here with Jessica Carr, and maybe she will start wrestling in the future. More on this in my booking room segment later on. Stephanie Vaquera retains the World Women's Championship against Roxanne Perez, and after that, she got attacked by both female members of the Judgment Day, and Nikki Bella comes and make the save. Now, I wouldn't trust Nikki Bella. Is Nikki Bella going to turn on Vaquera and go after the title? That's a possibility. And then we saw Kabuki Warriors promo saying that they're going after the tag titles. Now, that might be related to Rhea's broken nose, scrapping that feud altogether for now. And that's unfortunate, because it was the most compelling story right now on Raw. And it's sad that it's being railroaded, or it's being thrown off the rails because of an injury. And finally, Jey Uso wins the Battle Royal for the right to face CM Punk at Saturday night's main event. So that's it for my weekend review of Raw. Go to NXT right now. Sol Ruka got injured on SmackDown last week in her tag team title match against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, and she was tagging with Zarya, forming the team Zaruka. She wanted to relinquish her title, and Blake Monroe wanted to have the North American title handed to her, and Zarya offered to defend the title on Sol Ruka's defense, and Ava and Sol accepted. So Zarya versus Blake Monroe for Sol Ruka's North American title at Halloween Havoc tonight. Fatal Influence won a tag match against Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dane. And after the match, Tatum Paxley took out all three members of the Fatal Influence to give her the shining moment before the match on Saturday. Now, not much more happened on NXT this week. Of course, there were a lot of setups for Halloween Havoc, for which I'm making my predictions on this podcast in my last segment, and in the same segment that I preview next week's episode. So let's go to SmackDown. The opening with Cody and Drew McIntyre. Jimmy Uso attacks McIntyre, and he's blaming him for the attack. Now, Jimmy Uso going to SmackDown makes no sense right now, apart from the fact that he wants to defend his cousin Jacob. But why would he go there? Anyway, we'll see. Is Jimmy Uso going back to SmackDown? And will they make it that he attacked Jacob at the end? And will accuse everybody else of attacking Jacob? I don't know. It would be Jade Cargill, Naomi storyline all over again. And I think it's too soon to pull off that. So I don't think they're going to go with Jimmy attacking, being the one that have attacked Jacob. The MFT. What a lousy name, but the Bloodline was already taken. Defeat Rey Fenix and Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, Shinsuke came back and he already lost 2 matches. He came back as a babyface and he's already lost 2 matches. Why do you make him come back in the first place? To make him lose? I hope they have something in store for Shinsuke, because he deserves a lot better than this. The MFT are set to be the next dominant faction on SmackDown. Are they going to win the title, the tag team titles off the Wyatt Six? I think that would be unfortunate, because there's a lot of good tag teams in SmackDown right now, and those titles need to shine more. I hope the Wyatt Six start to defend it again more, and not just become like the World Tag Team Championship on Raw and become an afterthought. Tag team wrestling, that's just a small opinion from me there. Tag team wrestling is such a beautiful art when it's done correctly, and it sets a whole different dynamic than singles wrestling. And you can have so many good moments in tag team wrestling that WWE should emphasize it more than they are. Tiffany Stratton versus Kiana James. Now, as expected, Tiffany retained. uh, and was later attacked by Julia and Kiana, teasing a future match between Julia and Stratton and maybe a future feud between the two. But Jade Cargill, of all people, comes in and makes the save. And then just after I said to myself that Jade was turning heel, Jade attacks Stratton. So is now heel Jade Cargill gonna win the women's championship? That I've been saying that Jade Cargill is not ready for a world title run. I've been saying that for a long time. And maybe turning her heel where she's going to be more of an aggressive woman, aggressive wrestler, where she can beat down her opponents and not rely on technical wrestling and more on brutal wrestling and haymakers. And maybe now is the time to put the title on Jade Cargill. Not that she's going to have great matches, but that would set up the perfect match with a returning Bianca Belair afterwards. So Jade could be not a transitional champion. She can take the title off Tiffany, have a couple of matches again against Tiffany, hold her title, maybe wrestle another woman for the title after that, and then Bianca comes back and challenges Jade to a match, since Bianca can say that Jade turned her back on her. So that could be where it's going, and I'll see where it goes. And there might be a booking room episode coming for that storyline as well in the future. Ilya Dragunov and Aleister Black. Now, what a match. What a freaking match. But this was only to set up David Priest's comeback and reopening the feud between himself and Aleister Black. And finally, no DQ match between Drew McIntyre and Jimmy Uso. So after the match, McIntyre was going to maybe try to injure Jimmy. Cody comes in and makes the save. Brawl ensues between the two of them. And they get separated, and that was all to set up what's going to be the main event of Saturday night's main event. And it was done to set the stage for a more vicious Drew McIntyre going after Cody's title. So let's go to my detailed storyline breakdown. So for my first detailed storyline analysis, I decided to plunge into the Bloodline story that it's been going on for like 4, 5, 6 years. And that's involving right now more Jimmy and Jey Uso, with Roman stirring the pot a little bit and going to Jay's ear and saying that he should think about himself, just like Roman did so many times, so many years when he was Universal. Well, he was undisputed champion. So this is so Roman shadows. Is he pulling Jay's strings? Answer is probably yes. So this is the continuation of the story of the Bloodline, with Roman being at the, well, right now with Jey Uso being at the epicenter of it, more than Roman. Roman is like the authority figure in the bloodline, and he wants now Jey to have the success that maybe he had. Of course, Jey will probably not be champion for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever. So, but I think he wants Jey to have some success down the line. So Jey has now become the one going after a world title after getting a taste of it at WrestleMania. And like I said earlier, Jey right now is the epicenter of this new bloodline, new twist in the bloodline storyline, since Roman is only there sporadically. Now, Roman's philosophy in the bloodline storyline has always been family above else, putting himself as a tribal chief and creating a sense of dependence to the rest of the family. Roman's influence on Jey is lingering even while he's not there all the time, and Jey is torn between his loyalty to Jimmy, as exemplified by when Jey came to help Jimmy when Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were attacking him, and embracing the ruthless independence that Roman is preaching, and that's exemplified when Jey eliminated Jimmy from the Battle Royal on last Monday. So Roman has planted the fact that loyalty should be conditional to looking out for yourself first. Now, Jey and Jimmy get into arguments very often, and Jimmy did tell Jey numerous times that he's becoming more and more like Roman, and Jimmy is preventing that because he's trying to prevent Jey from becoming from Roman, like Roman. So let's take a look at what Jey Uso's mindset might be right now. First point, ego versus gratitude. Now, the fans made Jey Uso a huge babyface. And he might be thinking they're cheering for me, they're not cheering for us. And Jimmy is holding me back, and he's essentially riding my coattail. And again, he might be thinking that Jimmy is holding him back because he constantly have to go and help Big Jim, and get him out of jams. He might be also thinking, I'm done playing second fiddle. I want to come out of Roman shadows and maybe lead the new bloodline, or the bloodline, to new heights. And now that he had some single success, he doesn't want to go back to just being an Uso in a tag team. He wants to be and remain main event Jey Uso. The bloodline logic creeping back in. Like I said earlier, Roman implanted family comes first, but only if they follow the strongest. And Jey Uso right now feels like he's the strongest of the bloodline. And that's why he wants to become champion again. He wants to be the leader of the bloodline. And of course, there's always the pressure to prove himself. So for his match against CM Punk, he might be thinking, if I lose now, people will say that I need Jimmy, and I cannot let that happen. Now, is Jey gonna win at Saturday Saturday night's main event, I'm expecting a no contest. I'm expecting Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker to interfere in the match so that we don't have a winner. We don't have a champion right now, and they're going to try to come up with another way to have a champion. So let's come back to that storyline breakdown. I just wanted to state that I don't think we're going to have a champion on November 1st. Well, at least right now. So if Jey doesn't win on November 1st, he might start to think that he has to become more ruthless and embrace what Roman was telling him, and that would drive a wedge between the twins. So his frustrations might start to get him to adopting Roman's attitude. Now, as for Jimmy, here's what he might be thinking right now. First of all, he must be thinking, he must be feeling betrayed and hurt. After seeing his twin brother eliminate him in the Battle Royal, especially after saving his butt at least 2 times from elimination during that Battle Royal, that betrayal must hurt a lot. He must also be in kind of an identity crisis. After so many years as part of a tag team and never having success as a single competitors, he must be wondering if he can figure out who he is as a singles wrestler. And he's going to want to have a drive for redemption. He will want to prove that he can succeed without resorting to the same ruthlessness than Jey, and will want to win the right way. He will want to win the right way. Sorry, my phone was ringing. So I'll call back that person later. So what about Roman and all that? Well, Roman will be there to remind Jey to look out for himself above all else, even to the detriment of Jimmy. If Jey loses, Roman might even say that he was too soft and he wasn't ruthless enough. He might even go as far as saying that this is evidence that Jimmy is holding him back. Now, all this could lead to Jey winning the World Heavyweight Championship, even if it's not a Saturday night's main event. And this will probably lead to another match between Jimmy and Jey at a future PLE, and hopefully is going to be a lot better than the match that we saw at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. So that's how I see the breakdown of the storyline with the Bloodline right now. So let's go with my opinion right now. Okay, so for my first opinion segment on my podcast, I decided to talk about Dirty Dominik Mysterio. Now, if you go back in time about 2 to 2.5 years ago, well, maybe 2 years, when Dominik betrayed his father and Edge to join Rhea Ripley back then in the Judgment Day. Now, go back in time and try to remember what was the crowd reaction back then. Every time Dom wanted to talk in the ring for a promo, the crowd would boo him out of the building. Perfectly normal, because he turned on his father, and all this led to what we see right now. Dominic, WWE is making Dominic win his matches on his own more and more, although by cheating, that doesn't matter. Examples of that: AJ Styles at SummerSlam, two times against Rusev in the recent weeks, like 3 weeks ago and last Monday. Penta 2 weeks ago, or last week, I mean. Well, not Monday that we just had, October 20th, but October 13th. He beat Penta. Now, if you look at Dominic, even though it's not Eddie, they're trying to make him look more and more like Eddie Guerrero. The mustache, the mullet, the general demeanor. He's not Eddie. He's not Eddie by a long shot. But they are subtly building Dominic to be the next Eddie Guerrero. They essentially want to recycle Eddie Guerrero's gimmick with Dominic, and it seems to be working. He is using Eddie's tricks more and more, throwing foreign objects to his opponent and hitting the deck as if he was hit with that object, and he's cheating to win his matches. So people remember that, and they have fond memories of Eddie Guerrero, and that's the sympathy that now Dominic gets because of that. And if you look at the move set from Dominic, it's basically a mix of his father's. When he started, he had the moves of his father's: the 619, uh, the top rope splash, um, and some things like that. And of course, he's taken a lot of moves out of Eddie Guerrero's repertoire: the over the top senton, the three amigos, and of course, the frog splash, the love machine frog splash from Eddie that he uses to finish his matches. So WWE is slowly but surely building Dominic to be a future champion. Now, his ring work has greatly improved in the last few months. And we saw that against AJ at SummerSlam. That's when I really uh, noticed all the improvement of Dominic in the ring. Now he's currently in a heel faction in the Judgment Day, and there's, I think, a storyline developing to have someone breaking out of there. I have two people that I suspect would leave: Dominic and Finn Balor. Now, there's a rivalry between the two. Now, is it Finn that's going to make Dominic leave? Because rewind about a year and a half when when there was heat between Damian Priest and Finn. Back then, I really thought at first it would be Finn Balor that would turn face, but it was Damian Priest. Now, right now, a lot of people think that Dominic is heading for a babyface turn. My opinion, I think it's still too early for that, for Dom, because he wouldn't be a babyface. But I think he if he stays in the Judgment Day, if he stays heel longer, when he turns, he's going to be an even more huge babyface. So right now, he should continue to win by cheating, by stealing, by lying. Yeah, I lie, I cheat, I steal, like Eddie, and build his popularity like that. So I think that the guy that's gonna turn babyface is Finn Balor. So how would Finn Balor turn babyface? If WWE plays its card right, Finn could become a big babyface, and Dom could suffer a little setback in his popularity, but it's just going to make him a more huge babyface afterwards. So here's how I see it right now. Dom having the only titles in Judgment Day right now would ask Finn and JD to protect his titles. And then in Finn's back, he could manipulate JD McDonough to help Dom instead of being loyal to Finn. Being loyal to Dom instead of being loyal to Finn. And Dom could make promises to JD so that JD will help Dom beat Finn at some point uh, in the future. I made a video a couple of weeks ago about Finn Balor's babyface turn, where I explore uh, how I see the babyface turn of Finn Balor. I invite you to go see it. So at one point, Dom and JD could attack Finn Balor, throwing him out of the Judgment Day, and if played right, that could serve as Finn Balor to become a huge babyface, and in the future, in my video, I was talking about having Finn go after Dominik's Intercontinental title and maybe win it at WrestleMania. So Dominik will be a multiple time world champion in the future. Now remember, he's only 28 years old and he's already been WWE tag team champion with his father. I think it's 2 times. He was the NXT North American champion. And right now, he's the Intercontinental champion. And he's the AAA Mega champion. So look at this. And like I say, Dom should stay a heel right now. And maybe in a year and a half maximum, then he should turn babyface. And then he will be a huge, probably the biggest babyface in the company after Cody Rhodes. On to the next segment. So let's take a look at my first Wrestling Analyst podcast, Beyond the Bell, Booking Room. So today, like the little text you saw in the intro video, I'm going to talk about Becky Lynch and her Intercontinental title championship run. Now, Becky won the title back at Money in the Bank against Lyra Valkyria. She came out on top of that feud. and settling things with Lyra definitely at SummerSlam. Now, Becky's title reign, the impact of her title reign is huge. They're using Becky's title reign to elevate the title to near main event status, just like those titles should be. I'm talking about the men's Intercontinental title with Dom Mysterio right now. It's being used pretty good, but it's not at the same level as the women's Intercontinental title right now. But it's the title is not the men's Intercontinental title is good. Its reputation, its credibility is good. So we don't touch that. Becky's having high profile matches worthy of main event status. I said in one of my videos, title 11 titles, one problem, and that the Raw and SmackDown weekly programs are the solution for that, saying that the Intercontinental title, the US title, either men or women, should be almost exclusively defended on Raw and SmackDown, respectively. So right now, Becky is in a feud with Maxine Dupree. Now, that feud started a couple of months ago when Maxine had a match with Becky where Becky made her tap out, and Natty came and made the save at that match because Becky was still attacking Maxine. Now, more recently, she's had two matches. They had two matches together, which Maxine won both of them, one by countout and one by DQ. So here is how I would continue all this leading up to when Becky Lynch will lose the title eventually. So Monday, October 27th, Maxine is asking for a match because she still wants to go for the title. So Adam Pearce makes the match official for Saturday night's main event, which takes place on November 1st. So Saturday main event, Maxine comes close to win the title, but Becky retains by cheating her way to victory with Jessica Carr as the referee. So a distraction somewhere of Jessica Carr, and that Becky maybe uses the belt to knock out Maxine and retain her title. After the bell, Becky starts to violently attack Dupree, and Natalya comes out and makes the save, because we all know right now that Natalya is training Maxine Dupree in the Stu Hart's dungeon, in the dungeon. So when Natalya turns her back on Becky to tend to Maxine, Becky comes back in the ring and attacks Natalya, leaving both of them lying in the ring. So that takes care of Saturday's main event. On the following Raw, November 3rd, Becky comes in the ring saying that she's done with Maxine, she's beaten her, and she doesn't want to defend her title against her anymore. Cue Maxine's music. She comes out and asks for another match since Becky cheated to win. Of course, Becky is going to deny all that, but Adam Pearce comes out and makes the match official and makes it a no disqualification match. Well, since it's a no DQ, you can have Jessica Carr again as a referee or not. For this one, it doesn't matter. And why I'm mentioning Jessica Carr, it's because there's like two storylines embedded into one. One with Maxine and one with Jessica Carr, and let's say three storylines, but it's essentially two. Maxine's feud is in my booking right now, and what I would do if I was head of creative. Maxine is just to set up the feud between Natalia and Becky. So Becky wins, retains her title, and then proceeds to attack Maxine again to get Maxine definitely out of her way, prompting Natalia to come and save Maxine again, making her the locker room protector, veteran protector. But this time she doesn't turn her back on Becky and stares her down while Becky goes back to the locker room. So, week after Raw, November 10th, Natalia gets a match, let's say against Ivy Nile. And during the match, Becky attacks Natalia, prompting a DQ win so that Ivy Nile doesn't get the loss. Well, she gets the loss, but it's not a clean pin. It's just to make keep the storyline going. And Becky leaves Natalia laying after a manhandle slam. Becky is then interviewed backstage by Kathy Kelly or Jackie Redmond, whoever. And she mocks Natalia, saying that she's washed up, she should retire, she's no good at protecting her students. She really mocks Natalia, saying that she's not at her level. Natalia comes in, attacks Becky backstage. Brawl ensues between the two of them, and Becky comes back and comes out on top of the altercation. And then Becky could say to Natalia, "You will never beat me." Week after, Natalia cuts a promo saying that she's been a world champion before and that she can beat Becky Lynch. And she will prove it if Becky puts the title on the line. Pierce makes it official. Becky wins the match, cheating her way to victory again, with Jessica Carr as a referee for that one. And then Becky takes the mic and says, "There's no way that Natalia on her best day can beat Becky Lynch on her worst day. Natalia on her best day can't beat Becky Lynch on her worst day." So Natalia goes to Adam Pearce and asks for a title match at Survivor Series. Pearce makes it official, and Natalia then says that she has a surprise for Becky, setting up something, somewhat of a surprise for Survivor Series. So Survivor Series come. Becky comes out, sees it's Jessica Carr as a referee again, and gets pissed off right off the bat about that. And then the crowd is waiting in anticipation, but it's not the remix of the Hitman's music that comes blasting through the speakers. It's in the Natty Neidhart that comes out. And that's not Natalia. It's the Natty we saw at AAA Worlds Collide. The persona that Natalia, that she's working on the independent scene and in AAA. And that's the version of Natalia that we're going to see at Survivor Series, that we would see at Survivor Series. And then Natty would win the title off Becky. Maybe during the match, Jessica Carr prevents Becky from cheating, and that's when Natalia puts Becky Lynch away. So that could set up in the future a feud between Becky Lynch and Jessica Carr, because we all know that Jessica is training to be a wrestler as well. So that's how I see that. That's how I would book uh, Becky Lynch's end of the Intercontinental title reign and give Natalia a well-deserved Intercontinental title run. So let's go with the preview of the next episode. Okay, so this is a preview of my next episode. My opinion, next week I'm going to talk about women's wrestling. Should they have their own 2-hour episode, let's say on NXT? We could have an NXT women's division and NXT men's division. That would be on the Netflix or in the United States, USA Network, I think it's on, or something. My booking room, right now I'm thinking about doing my booking room about the World Tag Team Championship on Raw. Will AJ Styles and Dragon Lee be transitional champions? Or will they keep the title and defend it more often than the Judgment Day did? Now, as for the storyline, I'm not decided yet. I want to take a look at what Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton, what happened yesterday. Take a look at that, but I'm not decided yet on what I'm going to do there. Tonight is Halloween Havoc, NXT Halloween Havoc. We have 5 matches scheduled. JC Jane versus Tatum Paxley. Now, I think JC Jane is going to retain, and this match is made mainly to elevate Tatum Paxley to a higher level and maybe challenge for the NXT North American Championship. So I think that JC Jane is going to retain that match, the title. Trick Williams and Ricky Saints. That's a tricky one. Pun intended. The loser of this match, and I would say that it's likely Trick Williams, will probably get called up on the main roster to shake up a little bit things, because SmackDown needs a shakeup. At least SmackDown needs a shakeup. Dark State versus the Hardys. Now, Hardys are champions with all WWE brands, and I think it's time to drop the NXT title back to Dark State. Especially since it's a broken rules match. I think this will become essentially a 4-on-2 at one point in the match. So Dark State will take back the titles. Blake Monroe versus Zarya. Zarya is defending Sol Ruka's title on her behalf, and I think Blake is going to take the North American title. I think that this match was made for Sol Ruka to drop the title so that herself and Zarya might go to SmackDown. But I think those plans are now on the shelf with Sol Ruka's injury, which we don't know that much about yet. We know she has a knee problem right now, but is it a couple of weeks or something, or is it more serious? We don't know. And then finally, Ethan Page versus El Hijo del Dr. Wagner. Now, what a long name. I think that this will end in a no contest, because I don't see who should lose his title in this match that would be beneficial to the other. The only way I see someone losing would be Ethan Page, because he would get called up to the main roster. So that's what I think for Halloween Havoc. Now, At the end of my podcast, I'm going to do a little reminiscing. So I have going to make a mini segment this week in WWE history. Now, when I started looking at events that happened some years ago, I dropped on this very day, October 25th, 1999, on an episode of Monday Night Raw, when Mankind, or Mick Foley, Mankind as he was called then, defeated The Rock in an I Quit match to win his first WWE Championship on Raw. Now that was that night. It was pre-recorded. That episode of Raw was pre-recorded, and that was the night that Tony Schiavone revealed the results of the match on Monday Nitro in an effort to have viewers stay tuned to Monday Nitro instead of going to watch Raw. And that plan backfired, and that's possibly and probably the night that the Monday Night Wars turned around in favor of WWE, well, WWF at the time. But that's probably the night that everything turned around on this. So that's it for me this week. Until next week, this is a Wrestling Analyst signing off. See you and have a great week. That's it for this week, and thank you for listening to the Wrestling Analyst podcast, Beyond the Bell. If you loved what you heard, smash that subscribe button, drop a like, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the action. Got opinions? Share them in the comments. I want to hear your take. So until next time, stay loud, stay proud, and keep going beyond the bell.